Hi, look, Chris Johnson here again talking about another one of our publications, which is Learning from Asian Cities. This is based on a bit of a concern we have that politicians and planners keep talking about Rome, Paris, London, Barcelona, these European cities, which are actually all pretty old and not our Asian cities. So what we've done is we've looked at Singapore, Shanghai, and compared them to Sydney. So it's a really important issue, I think, to get a bit of an understanding of just how these rate. So what I'm going to do first off is just look at the global city rankings. These are rankings that show where Sydney sits, Shanghai sits, and Singapore sits. So I'm not going to go through all of them in great detail, but the one on this side here is called the Global and World Cities. And if you look at that, what you'll see, the orange is Shanghai. It starts right at the bottom in the year 2000, goes up in 2004, higher in 2008, 2010 and 12, to the point where it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in rankings for world cities. Just above it is Singapore, and the blue you will see is Singapore running across there, always pretty high as a global and world city. And the green is Sydney. It's come up a little bit from 2004 up into the top rankings, and now is looking pretty positive as a global and world city. So I just wanted to focus on that first off. The second thing I want to look at is what is the issue we pick up about Asian cities. And one of the ones is the city as a spectacle. So we've done this bit of a spread here looking at a city as a spectacle. And this means that tourists, that residents of a city can think, wow, what a fabulous city I've got here. And if you look at the image of the sunrise over Pudong in Shanghai, the incredible silhouette, or looking at in the daytime across the river, and you see these incredible tall towers which are very spectacular. And so the towers, I think, in Pudong in Shanghai are there as a spectacle to give confidence and aspirations to that city. Singapore, here's one with the sun just setting behind a series of buildings, also giving this incredible spectacle. This is in Marina Bay, or looking at Marina Bay Sands, this incredible building with a surfboard-like top held up by 3 residential and hotel towers that picks this up. So these cities are about spectacle. Sydney, of course, has the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House as its major spectacle components. But we also wanted to focus on the city as garden. And what happens in Asian cities, because partly of the tropics, but a really great sort of initiative about bringing gardens back into cities. So if we look, for instance, at Singapore, these images here show the Park Royal Hotel, Park Royal on Pickering, a building by some Australian architects actually called Woha. And you can see gardens dripping off this building, rippling along the building itself. It's a building just covered in landscape. And the next image is one at another building by Woha. It's an apartment building. This is the 20th floor, and it's just a garden on the 20th floor, and you look back out over the city. Or if we switch over to Shanghai, the image here just shows the streets of Shanghai, the amazing grass and landscape and hedges, or people walking through underneath the landscape. Sydney, of course, has a certain amount of greenery at Ivy and George Street and at Central Park in Sydney. But we need more of this, I think, happening in our cities. What this leads to is this graph here about livability with density. So the graph is from Singapore, and it shows on the bottom chart the livability index from the Mercer index. The ones on the right are the most livable. But the vertical axis is about density. What happens at the moment is that Sydney rates very well with livability, but it's not very high density. But look up the graph and you'll see that Singapore is both quite high on livability and on density. Sydney can learn with how we can move into this same realm. The other one I want to quickly show is Sydney as metro, city as metro. Sydney's getting its metro, but both Shanghai and Singapore are streets ahead. in terms of their metro. 1,000 kilometres of Shanghai metro in the last 25 years. Quite spectacular. I want to quickly move to tall buildings. I mean, tall buildings are very well known in Shanghai and in Singapore. We're getting them in Sydney, but the two charts here, you can see the green and the orange represent different cities. So the top one represents in green Singapore, the orange is Sydney, and the bottom graph similar, green being Shanghai and the orange being Sydney. So you can see that in both cases the green is dominating dramatically. We're a bit behind in this regard. The last image I want to show is a model of these cities. Here is a model of the Shanghai model of the whole city. Enormous and a great tourist attraction. Here is the one of Singapore, also a big tourist attraction, big exhibition. And here's a little glimpse of Sydney, not nearly as powerful as a tourist attraction. So all of these cities, I think, open up ideas that we can learn from. And what we've done, and the last thing I just want to show, is we've given 9 ways that Sydney can learn from Asian cities, from Shanghai and from Singapore. I'll just quickly mention what they are. 1, cities with global connections get the best jobs. 2, the garden city, epitomised by suburbia, can also be urban. 3, the spectacle of a city attracts tourism. 4, tall buildings are best in clusters. 5, metro transport infrastructure comes with density. 6, mixed-use development makes cities dynamic. 7, city models can be tourist attractions. 8, public space must interact with urban form. And 9, denser cities need multiple ground levels. We can certainly learn from Asian cities.